So, firstly, I want to start by saying that taking a P38 from EAS, which is electronic air suspension, and converting it to coils is not an upgrade. I know that, I agree with that statement, but in our case, for this build, which is Project Irrational, the owner is Jason. Although it's a very rational decision that we did, there's a reason why we put it on coils, and I hope that I can explain, and maybe some of y'all might have the same thought process. So before we begin, to me, I like to look at the suspensions that there are 5 main categories for me, and there is the EAS, which is, as I mentioned, electronic air suspension. There is the AHC, which is the active height control. Then you have coils, then you have torsion bar, and finally leaf spring. So these things can work together. There is like sometimes a combination of torsion bar and the rear leaf springs and stuff like that. But to me, when they have the EAS for the P38, that to me was the epitome of suspension. They managed to take a solid axle vehicle and make it feel so comfortable. Now, why did we go to coils? So a little history on this car. It was, Jason had it for 20 years. So 996, he had it for 20, it's now 2026. So he bought it up when he was about 10 years old, second hand. And he has had it for 20 years. And I'm proud to say, and I'm happy to have him as a customer, because he maintained the car really well. I'm not just talking about aesthetics. A lot of people are into that, but I'm talking about he maintained like whatever mechanical bits he did, because as we were removing the EAS from the vehicle, and that's when we could see, all these things that have been replaced. They were replaced with factory components, and they were replaced. So his airbags were new, but the car did come collapsed. So he has had the car collapsed on him, as in sitting on bumps multiple times throughout his ownership. And if I will have a link in the description regarding how the EAS works. There's a very good write-up by someone called Paul's P38, how does EAS work, and I think that's one of the easier ones to understand. So if you actually go through it and you see, it's not just about an air compressor or a tank and lines and valve body and then the bags. There's so many parameters and other items, factors that have to work together in order for the suspension to work. But when it does, it is beautiful. Hence why I say it's the epitome of suspension for me. But in this case, in Jason's case, in Jason's case, he has had it failed on him multiple times. He has replaced different parts over the years, and he replaced them new. And until today, you still can get a lot of new components for the P38. But he was taking this build to a different level. The whole idea for this build was he wants custom bumpers made in the front. So he probably will add a winch to the front. He'll have the rear done up as well with a tire carrier, because sizing of tire wise, he's going slightly bigger. I don't think it'll be as big as the RRC that we are building, because that car, Joshua's car, the RRC top button, that one is geared correctly for that size of tires. We didn't do ratios for Jason's car. We did rebuild the entire diff. That's just one of the steps that we do in stage 1. And even though the whole car, like I told you, was maintained well, Jason had no trouble like saying that, let's just start from fresh, let's just get everything done and make sure we start from ground zero, because he was planning, he's going to pass his vehicle even for his son to use, and I don't think he wants to have the son worry about things failing on him, hence why he was alright doing it. So things like fuel pump, I did ask him, like, when was the last you replaced a fuel pump, because anyway we're going to have to bring down the tank when we do our stage 1 bottom side. And he was like, I did probably maybe 10 years ago he replaced it, but he was like, what, forget it. There was nothing wrong with it. Remember the car starts and shifts very well. Even though on the bumps, I still could drive it. So we still replaced the entire fuel assembly, and that's just something that he was willing to do. We did the bushes, so every bush has been changed. So whatever you could get from Super Pro is Super Pro. Whatever has to be factory is factory. And then seals, Land Rover and seals. I think when all the engineers got together and and all the Land Rover engineers got together, and they were like, they're really smart with the things that they do and they come up with. But sometimes, I mean, whoever they're getting their supplies from, this, I don't know, the seals, and it's obviously only sized towards Land Rover. So in Malaysia, it's not so hard. It's very hard to get them. But obviously in UK, it's just down the road and you can get it from any shop. But either way, all this were in stock, so something that we could get. What made this project really successful as well was being able to, for me, was my supplier Pedis. So Steven is an awesome guy. He's an engineer as well. And why I say this is because, look, I was dealing with a salesperson, and kudos to him, he tries to entertain the questions that I have and the things that I want, but it just wasn't right. So when Steven got into the picture very early on, he knew, he could grab me spec sheets, he could get the dimensioning, he could get spring rates, we could really do good stuff because we have all this info, and which is not available online. So this is normally given back end. So, and that was something that I could get my hands on, and hence why this build was, I feel, successful, is because it's still using all Land Rover components. So they're all mainly Defender stuff, except our front absorber, actually surprisingly both Land Rover and Toyota shares it. So the absorber is off. It will be a 100 series using the same absorber. If the 100 series had no AHC, no active height control, it will be using the same type of absorber mounts. So on our part, we had to fabricate spring seats, spring retainers. We did the steering damper mods where we had brackets made for it, and obviously where the absorbers mount in, those had to be modified as well to fit. But what I'm so happy with is geometrically everything lines up, like how the vehicle would have sat on bags or just slightly taller. That's how we got it done. And I obviously drove it before we took apart everything and doing our stage 1. I drove it and I found it lovely. So how I set up cars, what I find comfortable may not be comfortable for everyone, because I like the vehicles slightly stiffer. I'm not so much of a fan of body roll through the corners. So even on my 100, I will put the AHC to full-blown sports mode even when the car is empty, because I just like it a bit stiffer. And that's normally how I generally set up the suspension, but I will after that change it or tune it or do whatever is needed to better suit the client. And that's just one of the things we do for the stage 1 restoration side. So the chassis is enamel coated, and before we even get to that, we have to dry ice blast, we have power wash, dry ice blast, chemical clean. And I know there's a lot of, I think it's a trend now, so a lot of shops that call it restoration. Basically everything is painted black or everything is painted silver, but nothing is taken apart. It's just paint, and I don't know what paint is it. I'm not comparing, I'm not complaining, I'm just saying that the word restoration, I think it's overused. That's why at times I don't even want to say it, because it's becomes embarrassing to a point. So I just call it stage 1, what we can do. It's much easier that way. So what we do for our stage 1, we do that. We dry ice blast, power wash, chemical clean, prep the surface. Chassis gets an enamel coat, the inner side gets a cavity wax, underbody it's sort of gravel mix, but it also has a wax layer, so it always stays a bit tacky. That one needs to be sort of has a maintenance to it. And then the wheel wells, different finish. That's by Sika, so they help with dampening and reduce road noise. And then we also have the covers, being the plastic covers that will have sound treated as well with the layer. The only rust issue that we found on this car was the rear area where the spare tire goes in, and I think that's a common point because there was water getting into the vehicle. Also something that we would fix later on, but we did get the body and all sorted out, got it all welded back and whatnot. And then for the axles and all the components like the radius arms and those kind of stuff, those will be an hemorrhide finish because to take a bit more beating. And and that's why I'm saying, like, every different process, and then the brake calipers are powder coated. Every process has a different finish because it requires a different finish. It's a different usage scenario, and it's exposed to different things. There's different thicknesses. So that's why I say you can't just spray everything black or everything silver and then call it restored. I'm very sorry, but it doesn't work that way. So for this car, that's what we did. If anybody has changed ball joints for a Disco 2 P38, I think that was the hardest thing for us. It sounded almost like a gunshot going off when we finally got it off. But yeah, I'm not sure if Jason replaced it before, but we got that replaced as well. Drive shaft boot was done. All the bearings are still, so the bearings are Timken, whether it's pinion bearings, carrier bearings. We also did, so brakes have been rebuilt, new rotors on it, brakes lines are new, and that's what encompasses our stage 1. So this was a coil conversion and a stage 1. I think I'm not going to drag too long this video, so I just wanted to share that I do understand how good the EAS is, the electronic air suspension. But in our case, for this build, we went down this route because there was a different direction that we are aiming for, and it's just the reliability that we wanted. And I know people are going to say that the EAS is equally as reliable. I'm sorry, but there are a lot more components to it, and there are a lot more points of failure, and when they do fail, it sits on bumps. So yeah, that's just something, or that's just my thought, and the owner does agree with that as well. So right now we're just finishing things up so I can get it down the hoist and I can get other cars on. That's one of the biggest problems I have here at my shop, is hoist allocation time. I wish I had more hoists, but again, I have height issues as well in the building, so it's very hard to get more in. But anyhow, thank you so much. Thank you guys so much for listening. I will catch you all on the next one. Thank you.